Hi, I'm Trivial Punk, and we're reading The Labors of Hell. We're on part 4. This is the end of the series, so if you're just joining us, feel free to skip back to the first one or spoil the ending. It's up to you. Well, glad to have you back. You can't really die here, but there are more than a couple brain-fried drones kicking about. Still here, eh? Yep. Damn it. That's the spirit! Come on. With some difficulty, Jeremy sat up. Blood rushed away from his head, and he realized, much to his chagrin, that he was hanging upside down from the same insectoid creature. Struggling against all odds to keep the bile from his throat, he pulled the hairs out of his legs, producing gouts of blood in the process. They ran down his body and dripped onto the purple floor below, extracting a brief slurping sound with each drop. Is there anything here that doesn't eat you? Sighing, he let himself drop to the floor with a sickening crunch. A few, the man answered. The walls here may be alive, yes, but they're quite benevolent. They passively absorb the bodily fluids they come in contact with. He easily slid off the creature and landed on his feet, arms outstretched in the grand gesture he so favored. Welcome to the Caves of Passion! Hundreds of thousands of caves puckered out of the walls of the chasm, the unfathomably deep chasm that battered Jeremy's vision. Every opening sprouted the same throbbing purple biomass that carpeted the floor beneath him. These are the caves where our patrons explore their dark, lustful desires until they simply cannot think of them anymore. And then ad nauseum. The light flickered softly somewhere deep inside the cave. The problem being that these desires are often quite personal and quite specific. And as you can see, we tackled that problem by producing the most subdivided department in our entire organization. Now, come! You have to see this. You say that every time, you devil, Jeremy shot back. And I'm about sick of it. I'm not sure what you think I could possibly do here. This whole place seems to run itself. Or, at least, requires such an abundance of labor that one could hardly believe you'd commit so much personal time to each job offer, especially considering the probable rate of acceptance. Granted, I'm sure you have lots of time, but the turnover is non-existent. The benefits package is not to be believed. Even so, I think I've had enough. Oh, not really. Jeremy stopped, speechless. Fear thrilled him to silence. After all he'd seen, what could he really say? They tromped along down the winding purple passageway, the ground squishing softly with each step. The light in the distance grew more distinct with every squash. Down the distant, twisted cavern, Jeremy swore he could hear cries of pain, or, more likely, ecstasy. Finally, the cries were all around him. They sounded strangely familiar. Turning the corner, an inner sanctum of the cave swung into view, and his heart leapt for his throat, sticking there. Lights flickered a deep, crowning red, washed through with the wanton tint of flesh. Step after step of the man behind him squished an echoing return in time with each moaning scream of exultation. A litany to the rising torment he'd had so deeply entrenched within. She turned and smiled her smooth, pussycat glare over a bare, rising shoulder. Your strength, darling, has always been your curse. You just won't look away. She stiffened suddenly and let out a purring growl, her breath coming in heavy, pleading gasps. Blood ran in rivulets down her thighs. Jeremy felt black and saw red. Rage swirled inside him, a torrent of hatred whipping harshly around a limbed core. All thought ceased, and he became a wicked, terrible animal thing, a focused essence of dark desire. Skin, muscle, and bone drove itself repeatedly against the pain, straining, pushing, driving to destroy, raging in primal denial of everything Jeremy had seen, of all she had done. But how could she be here? How could she be here? He shouted. Answer me! You've known. You've known for a long time, Jerbear. You could smell it on her, taste it, feel it. Lack of attention, bitter glances, and hopeful eyes. You've done your best to ignore it, but it's not going away. You can't pretend anymore. The bloody pulp beneath his fingers began to pull itself together and resolved into the twitching, frightened face of his wife. She's already been punished, Jeremy. Didn't you see? Couldn't you hear? He let loose a howl of laughter colder than a winter gale. This, right here, had nothing to do with punishing the lustful. That was something else. Your own personal sin. Wrath. The word escaped inaudibly from Jeremy's mouth, a look of understanding growing slowly out of his twisted features. Your anger drives you, feeds you, detaches you. Rage is an unbridled force of destruction. The account you closed on that poor fellow, that old woman you told off, the love, understanding, and empathy you've ceased to show is delicious. Every aspect of your life has been infected and infused, and I love it! We can use it here. Arms behind his back, chin held high, he walked in slow circles around the pitiful figure of Jeremy cradling his wife's body. Every bit a rallying general. Didn't you notice? No, I don't imagine you'd recognize normal anymore if you saw it, the man said sarcastically. Normal people can't stare at another human being wallowing in a puddle of blood, reaching out for help, and do nothing but sneer. You could easily have helped. The atrocities you've seen committed here, you haven't done a thing. They've all been barely human to you. And you've been barely human for a while now. The red-faced man reached down and snapped his fingers. The figure melted away to a gray, pallid body that quivered in Jeremy's arms. This, Jerbear, is the burnt-out wreck of a thing we here at ORE use to do our dirty work. And believe me, it's all dirty. The keepers of the flame, the candles of wrath, our final department. Fear, anger, pain, hatred, revulsion, a mixture of countless emotions rose within Jeremy as a solid tide. All of them shouted at once in a unified voice for him to embody. Denial! No! The cry rent his lips. I won't be your bloody puppet! The eyes of the form in his arms gleamed as it lashed out at him. Jeremy tossed it to the ground and bowled into the fedored man, rebounding as surely as if he'd run into a solid wall of iron. Grunting in frustration, he lashed out with a foot at the gray form clawing at his legs and ran. But where? Without a guide, he was totally lost. Oh well. He ran deeper into the tunnel, turning and throwing himself down the nearest opening in the wall. Rolling to his feet at the bottom as soon as he was able, he continued on, feet pounding in what was now rock. Come on, whispered a familiar voice in his head. You belong here. The cries of pain that the pitiful effigy of his wife had made as he'd rendered her into a bloody, whimpering mass echoed in his head. That wasn't her. Another frigid laugh. He ran and ran and ran, though he had no idea where. Just anywhere. Even if he didn't know the way out. Even if there wasn't one. Anything was better than a life-inflicting pain. Get out of my head! But that's what you've been doing, isn't it? An elevator door dinged open, and he bolted inside, smashing the door close button and running his fingers over the other options. Purple, lust, gold, pride. Red, must be wrath. Might as well check out The Office. An excellent idea! Oh, for fuck's sakes, maybe not. He mashed the emergency stop button and the downward ride buzzed to a halt. A speaker on the wall crackled to life. Please remain calm. A maintenance crew will be with you shortly, Jeremy. Drops of ichor seeped from the speaker's grating. Great, but I don't intend to be here. Using the railing on the elevator's wall as a step, he pushed frantically at the maintenance hatch. It cracked open and he pulled himself out. Huh. It was an archetypal elevator shaft, with a ladder leading to a maintenance shaft outlined in yellow and black stripes. Without looking down, Jeremy pulled himself up the rungs and through the opening. Dust and cobwebs swirled in the wake of his entrance, sending him into a coughing fit. Jesus! He coughed, eyes squinting with tears. Pulling himself along into the cramped space proved to be slow going, but he could see a light up ahead. Not that that could possibly herald anything positive down here. Something stirred in a vent off to his right. Through the growing light, he could just make out a large, 8-legged something. Suddenly, the multitude of cobwebs he'd been dragging himself through made more sense. Horrifying visions of being wrapped in silk and fed on for eternity sent him scrambling like a madman through the vent, kicking and screaming. Fuck, 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 fuck. He could feel the stiff hair on the thing's front legs brushing against his calves. To his eternal relief, the skittering thing fell just short of him in the exit he threw himself out of, flopping onto a dressing room floor. The final piece of a great ancient mechanism boomed into place. As he sprinted past chairs and costumes, mannequins and makeup counters, it all made sense. Why his wife was here, the gray-mottled figures that looked surprised by his sprinting presence, the torturous methods that had been so relevant to him, his personal guide, it had all been fake! Jeremy crashed into the red-faced man, bedecked in the crown of a cuckold. This, Jeremy, is your own personal hell. Well, some of it was real, but I'm betting you didn't know the difference. The pain, the anger, the torture you felt, it was very real. Again, a wistful grin touched his lips. Life, death, pain, happiness, once you move past it, it's just a game. A dance. I wanted to show you. Take you beyond simply living and give you a glimpse of a world without destruction. This is just that. It's all cabaret. The souls suffer, some repent, and some don't. In the end, it really doesn't matter. The big guy upstairs may have a terrible PR department, but he's no doddering fool. That's why this place exists. Humans were not the greatest of his creations, but they were blessed with something as his favorites. The freedom to choose. He took the hat out from between his new fibrous adornments. Now, the man continued, I don't want to see you back here. I like you. We shared a couple of laughs. I know we had a disagreement or two, but the world is a playground, and it was enjoyable to share it with you for a time. Once more, the red-faced man snapped his fingers, and the world melted away to a blurring, blinking confusion. He sat up, soaked in sweat, and threw the sheets off to look at himself in the mirror, carefully checking the medicine cabinet. No hat, no blood, no nothing. But it had all been so real, so vivid. He'd believed it. All of it. It was time to wake up, though. His dreams had left him with that much. He had been ignoring his wife's indiscretions, and it had been tainting his life, twisting him. Their happiness had been a lie, and had been tearing him apart while he wasn't paying attention. He wanted to love her unconditionally, but their falsehood, even crafted with noble intent, still cut as a cruelty with the truth bubbling just beneath the surface. He had to let his head fall into his hands. A great sob shook through his body. Breath came to him in slow, painful rattles. It was time to let it all out. To let it go. To let her go. He sat there, clutching himself for support as he rocked through the waves of emotions until the first rays of the morning sun broke through the curtains. He had to call her, to tell her while it was still all so clear and so fresh, while he could see it, feel it, before the denial sunk its claws in again. Bracing himself, he thanked God for the dream that had spurred him to action. It would hurt, a lot, but eventually, things would look brighter than they ever could now. Even in the ruins of his current life, he could see that. He had to deal with it now, while he could, before the cynical bitterness grew roots too deep to ever be extricated. Before he became the devil himself. With another deep breath, he reached over and picked up his fish